Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another Transformers issue review. Today we're going to be looking at Transformers number 7, written by Daniel Warren Johnson with art by George Corona, which is different. And actually, I should say that correctly, it's Jorge Corona, and with colors and line work and stuff by Mike Spicer. And this is a really great kind of transition in terms of artwork. So, I want to talk about that before we actually talk about the volume, or sorry, the issue, the story inside of it, right? In general, I think that Jorge Corona was the right person for this, right? The difference in their art style is noticeable. You know, it's clearly not as grungy as before. However, the kind of blockiness still maintains itself quite well. Like, the styling is not necessarily that different, right? Like, of course it's different because the inking specifically is kind of where the differences lie between Daniel Warren Johnson and Jorge Corona, at least most noticeably to me, right? And I'm not an artist, so I'm kind of, you know, trying to use the right vocabulary here the best I can. So if I do it incorrectly, please feel free to correct me. Just be nice about it, right? But in my opinion, the most major differences between these two writers, or sorry, these two artists, is the grungy, like, kind of like thickness of the line work that Daniel Warren Johnson does, right? Compared to Jorge Corona's slightly less thick lines, but still this kind of like interesting sketchiness to both of them, right? And so the artwork is different, noticeably so, but not so badly that it's quite jarring, right? This is pretty enjoyable, and the transition is pretty like easy to be okay with. Also, Carly specifically maintains almost the same vibe completely, right? I mean, I like Jorge Corona's people a little bit more than I like Daniel Warren Johnson's, but Carly's design is essentially the same. However, Spike's is a little bit different. It's a little bit more long when it comes to Jorge Corona, right? So there are differences that are going to be noticeable and clear, but it's not so bad that it's noticeable, right? Like, this isn't like Conan, right? Where Rob Del Torre is like a very specific old school style, and then Doug Braithwaite is a much more modern style, right? Like, it's not like that. This is like two kind of people that don't draw the same, but draw similar enough that it's not, you know, difficult to be okay with it, right? So I think they did a great job with that. That transition from one artist to the other was well done, and keeping the same colorist and the same kind of like general vibe works well. I didn't notice any major differences in the design elements either of the Transformers, so I think that's good. And in general, I actually really like the artwork here. If the human characters are going to be more relevant in this arc, I'm happy that we had Jorge Corona join, because I like the way that he draws humans better, right? But I've basically repeated the same kind of sentence over and over again for the last 3 minutes, so let's actually transition over to actually talk about the story here, right? So we start with a Cybertron flashback, which is great. This is very reminiscent of Bumblebee, right? However, it's a little bit different because this one focuses on RC, right? And 3 other red shirt Transformers who I'm pretty sure I'm aware of. Like, I know who these characters are very vaguely back from when I watched the original Transformers series, but they're not important. They basically die within this flashback, so who cares who they are, right? But they basically die fighting through this region of Cybertron trying to do something. We don't know what it is at the time, but eventually by the end of the flashback, we know that it was to try to find Ultra Magnus, who was kidnapped and tortured, right? And actually, they end up getting there a little bit too little, too late, right? Like, basically, he's dead by the time that RC manages to get to him. And of course, this is bad. This is kind of a very messed up thing for RC to go through. And it's actually quite relevant to the story here. And so the flashback being here at the beginning was quite good because when it becomes relevant, you've already experienced it, you've had time to assimilate it, and so you know exactly what RC is talking about when she mentions it, right? So I like that. I thought that the way the pacing of the story was set up was quite good. So we return to Earth. We're over the Pacific Ocean, and we get to see this American warship. I think it's a what's it called? Like a a destroyer. I'm not really sure. It might not be. It might be an aircraft carrier, but I don't think so. The ship captain gets a call. And this call is directly from Washington. And he's told, come back here. We need you. There's giant robots here, and we need you to shoot them down, right? And so they head back to Washington to see if they can make it there, right? We don't really know what happens here, but we transition over to the Decepticons, and they're kind of in an area that's just kind of full of fire and flames everywhere. You really don't know anything in terms of the background, like where are they? But in this area, Soundwave is challenging Starscream to a duel for the leadership of the Decepticons. And Starscream tries to kind of convince people to support him instead, to not really go along with this. However, one of the other Decepticons is like, dude, shut up, this is our way, you need to accept this challenge, whether you like it or not. And, well, Soundwave beats the shit out of him quite soundly. And I quite like it. I think that this was very good. And it ends up with Soundwave being the new leader of the Decepticons. And I'm very curious to see how this goes. In my limited knowledge of the old Transformers lore, I'm not sure that this has happened before. You know, I mean, like, I understand the idea that Starscream always wants to be Megatron's replacement, and Megatron has to constantly fight him for it, and usually manages to do so quite easily and well. But I don't remember any other characters wanting to be in charge of the Decepticons. So, I mean, this is a pretty, as far as I understand it, kind of unprecedented moment in the storytelling of Transformers, and it's actually really shocking and cool. So I liked it a lot. I think it was very, very nice. And it was, you know, Soundwave looking really badass. So that was awesome. I like this character a lot, right? So, yeah. Then we turn back to the Ark, and we get to see that RC's kind of just walking around. She finds Carly, who is practicing with her rifle, and she's trying to kind of basically get better at shooting so that she can fight the Decepticons properly the next time they meet, right? Because they killed her dad, they killed Mr. Woodwicky, and they kind of ruined their little town, right? And so Carly is full of anger and hate right now, especially because her and Cliff couldn't kill Starscream last time, right? And so she's kind of full of this righteous fury, but also kind of this insane desire for revenge that's not going to end up working well for her, right? And so RC and her kind of have a little bit of a moment there where they kind of interact positively, and then RC tries to help Carly out. She's like, you know, this anger that you have is powerful, but it's not good for you. You should try to kind of minimize it as much as you can, because it's going to eat you from the inside out, right? And Carly kind of pushes her aside. She kind of tells her that she doesn't care. And this is where RC mentions Ultra Magnus and the kind of flashback that we had at the beginning of the story, right? So it worked out really nicely. I think that the way that it was included worked out very well. So yeah, I like that. I think it was well done. Then we transition over to Cliff, who's talking to Jazz about his issues with Carly. You know, Carly basically doesn't forgive him for not being able to kill Starscream, and he's kind of having a difficult time getting to reconnect with her, and this kind of hurts him, right? Because Carly and him became quite good friends quite quickly over this, you know, first 6-issue run, and so he's kind of struggling with this now. Like, what is there to do? What is the right thing to do, right? And so they talk about this, and this transitions over to Jazz talking about how Optimus is having the similar problems with Spike, and this is because, you know, Spike's dad sacrificed himself for the sake of Optimus, right? And this is when we get to see that Optimus is kind of walking around and sees something, and then has this like weird PTSD type flashback thing to what seems to be a memory of Sparky, right? Of the Woodwicky character, of Spike's dad. And this is quite interesting. It's quite weird. I'm not really sure what's going on here. I think that Optimus and Spike's dad are going to transition into a single character, and this is where, you know, wise Optimus, you know, leader of the Autobots comes from, whereas he's still kind of young Optimus here at this point. Not exactly. It's not like the Earthrise series. It's not like that exactly, and it's not like Beast Wars, or sorry, the Rise of the Beast either. Like, he's not like, he's still clearly Optimus, right? But I think this might be a transition period for him where he's going to become more of the Optimus we know, right? So I'm very curious to see how this kind of works, right? And then we kind of learn that the Autobots are having issues healing, and then we end with this really badass kind of moment of Optimus saying, you know, basically, Decepticons, be ready because we're coming for you. And fucking class, dude. Like, it was awesome. I loved it. I think it was phenomenal. So overall, this was a great issue. I really, really liked it. I think that transition in the artwork is good. It functioned well. And for me, it actually makes the story a little bit more enjoyable, right? Because Daniel Warren Johnson's artwork is awesome, but I just don't like his human characters, right? I don't like the way he draws people. And Jorge Corona, although his, mechanical design isn't as awesome as Daniel Warren Johnson's, his human character is a little bit more palatable to me. So to me, it balances out ultimately, right? Like, I still enjoy this as much as before, but the kind of writing here was a little bit more exciting to me than kind of the first and second issues. And so this is kind of like the same kind of story where this is the start of a new arc, and there's a lot of cool, badass stuff that's happening here, and I really, really liked it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Transformers number 7. So, there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought down below, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.